interesting as well. You were talking about the Harvest Festival, because it reminded me of. So I went to university with a guy from northern Nigeria who was only here for 1 year and went back to Nigeria afterwards. And I was thinking there about, he's actually Muslim, but the connection between religion in this sense, or the church, and food production. Because I mean, one of the reasons why I bring that up is because I was just catching up with him as I would normally say, and it was his birthday, and I was saying, "Happy birthday, how are you doing?" And he said something like, "I'm fine. I wish you have a bountiful harvest." It was one of the first things he said, and I don't know if it's because he knew I was a farmer, and so that was just something nice that you say. But I think that they say that that's quite commonplace within his culture anyway, still. And Islamic culture, and traditionally with the church, that's been the case as well, hasn't it? Why is that, do you think? Why is the church and food production been so linked in the past? Which is why probably that rural communities are also more religious in quotes than urban. One of the reasons, because of that connection, maybe.
Yeah, I suppose part of it is to do with the history of Britain and the Anglican Church, where when the liturgy for the Anglican Church was written, it was still quite rural. A lot of the country was still rural, and much of the economy was based on agriculture. So the harvest played an important role in the day-to-day life. And in fact, it's still the case in Zimbabwe. The Industrial Revolution has meant that the West, the economy isn't so much based on agriculture, but it's services, manufacturing, and so forth. 3%, if that, probably less than that, of the workforce is actually involved in working the land. Whereas in Zimbabwe, Nigeria, there's a substantial chunk of the working population that is actually still working the land. And that is an important aspect of the economy. And at the time that the liturgy for the Anglican Church was written, that was the case here. So you will see how the way the economy worked in those times shaped the liturgy, and that liturgy has remained. And here's another interesting thing about it when you look at the times when the liturgy was written. There's a lot in the liturgy that addresses things like death at sea. That was a significant consideration because you will know about the wars with Spain, Philip II and Elizabeth. Dying at sea was significant risk.
Yeah.
Not so much these days. But it's things like that. And agriculture would have been a big component of the economy. So it's not surprising that in the rurals, where you tend to see more traditional liturgy than in the urban, where people have just abandoned prayer books from the 16th century and moved on with more modern language services that address more contemporary issues.
And what was the issue about dying at sea? Was there a problem that was to do with your soul, or is this to do with just generally burying the person afterwards? There's no like sin to die at sea. I didn't know there was.
No, but there was. There's no particular problem in dying at sea. But there was a liturgy for a service for those that had died at sea, because it was a common enough occurrence.
Yeah, sure.
I think in modern times you still get that during times of war with army, not navy chaplains. They are more likely to use that. But even now, I don't think, because this would have been death at sea, especially during combat.
Right. Yeah. It's also as well. Not only that it just popped into my head as well whilst you were saying those things with the Navy clergy. The FCN we had on last week, the Farming Community Network. I just remembered actually, they actually have, pastors and vicars who represent them in basically pastoral help over the phone. So, it's going into the 21st century, a digital helpline and the first thing that they do, or at least one of the things they think is useful for rural people when they're in a state of mental need is a vicar, or at least I think there's two. They have the Anglican and maybe a Catholic as well. I could have that wrong, but yeah, that's we spoke to Alex last week, but we didn't actually touch on that, considering how big it is.